She laughed in my face and said, "You're too boring to ever catch me." I brought FBI evidence to family dinner, and she collapsed like a defendant hearing a federal verdict. I'm Michael Thompson, 44 years old, and for 16 years, I believed my marriage to Amanda was built on the same foundation as my career: meticulous attention to detail and unwavering commitment to truth. We lived in a custom colonial estate in Westchester County, the kind of property that whispers success through professional landscaping and smart home technology that I'd personally designed. I worked as a senior forensic accountant for the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, specializing in complex fraud investigations and money laundering cases that sent white-collar criminals to federal prison for decades. Amanda managed high-net-worth portfolios at Sterling Wealth Advisors, handling investments for tech executives and entertainment industry moguls who valued discretion above all else. To our community, we were the power couple who had mastered both professional excellence and domestic sophistication. To me, we were partners building something permanent through shared values. To Amanda, as I was about to discover, we were apparently just sophisticated cover for her real criminal enterprise. My FBI training teaches you that the most dangerous criminals operate through legitimate channels, exploiting trust and access to conduct systematic dissections that can operate for years without detection. The red flags in my marriage accumulated like evidence in a federal investigation, each one small enough to rationalize individually, but devastating when analyzed with forensic precision. February brought Amanda's sudden fascination with my work schedule, asking detailed questions about case timelines and federal travel requirements with curiosity that seemed supportive rather than calculating. March introduced weekend wellness retreats that required overnight stays at luxury spas and locations that seemed to change each time I asked for specific details. April saw the introduction of mysterious financial discussions she'd take in other rooms, speaking in hushed tones about investment opportunities and client emergencies that required immediate attention at unusual hours. When I offered to review potential investments together, she'd explain that wealth management required confidentiality protocols that made sharing details inappropriate before deals were finalized. May brought the dead bedroom situation that developed like a slow financial fraud, systematic and methodical. Amanda always had legitimate reasons for avoiding intimacy: exhaustion from demanding clients, stress from market volatility, hormonal fluctuations that killed her desire for physical connection. But she had endless energy for increasingly frequent client entertainment events that stretched past midnight. June introduced David Chen, a senior partner who existed only in carefully edited stories. She'd mention him casually, always in professional contexts, describing him as a mentor, helping her navigate complex regulatory requirements and institutional relationships. Looking back, I realized she was conditioning me to accept his presence in her life, making him seem boring and safe rather than exciting and dangerous. July brought client networking events that required Amanda's presence at exclusive venues where wealthy individuals conducted business through sophisticated social interactions, always coinciding with my federal case deadlines when I'd be working 18-hour days. The breaking point came at our annual neighborhood barbecue, a Labor Day tradition where Westchester's professional elite gathered to celebrate the end of summer while conducting serious business over craft cocktails and strategic conversations. Amanda had been particularly animated that evening, discussing market trends with hedge fund managers while I reviewed case files on my phone preparing for Tuesday's federal court testimony. The conversation at our table revolved around investment strategies, regulatory changes, and the complex world of wealth management. When the discussion turned to recent SEC enforcement actions against investment fraud, I offered insights about forensic accounting techniques used to detect sophisticated financial crimes, drawing on my FBI expertise in tracking money through shell companies and offshore structures. The table listened politely, but Amanda's reaction was swift and devastating. She laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound that cut through the elegant atmosphere like shattered crystal. "Oh, Michael, you and your paranoid fraud theories," she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Honestly, darling, sometimes I think you see criminals everywhere because your world is just spreadsheets and federal investigations. The investment world operates on sophisticated relationships and trust, not your boring audit trails and compliance protocols. Her words carried the condescension of someone addressing a child who didn't understand adult complexities. The humiliation was surgical and public, delivered with a smile for an audience of financial professionals. But what came next would destroy everything between us forever. As I sat in stunned silence, processing the public execution of my professional credibility, Amanda leaned closer with the confidence of someone who believed she held absolute power. "You're too boring to ever catch me anyway, Michael," she whispered with casual cruelty. "Face reality. You're a forensic accountant who follows paper trails while I create actual wealth in the real world. You couldn't detect sophisticated operations if they were happening right under your nose." The words hit like physical blows, each syllable designed to maximize psychological damage. She'd just dismissed 16 years of marriage, my federal expertise, and my fundamental worth as a partner, while surrounded by Westchester's financial elite. But in that moment of complete humiliation, something fundamental crystallized inside me. The pain, the shock, the disbelief began hardening into something colder and infinitely more dangerous. Amanda had just challenged an FBI forensic specialist to detect sophisticated operations while conducting what I was beginning to suspect was systematic financial fraud disguised as legitimate wealth management. The emotional husband died in that moment. The federal investigator had just been activated, and Amanda had no idea that her boring, paranoid husband who saw criminals everywhere was about to employ the same investigative techniques I used to destroy international money laundering networks for federal prosecutors. Every transaction, every client relationship, every carefully constructed business operation would be examined with the precision I brought to cases that resulted in federal indictments and decades-long prison sentences. She'd said I was too boring to ever catch her. She was about to discover that challenging a forensic expert who works directly with federal agencies while conducting sophisticated financial crimes was the most expensive mistake anyone could make. The boring, spreadsheet-obsessed husband was about to become the most dangerous threat she'd ever encountered, armed with federal-level investigative capabilities and unlimited motivation to expose whatever criminal enterprise she was operating under the guise of legitimate investment management. My response wouldn't just make her panic, it would make her collapse in ways she never imagined possible. The humiliation of that Labor Day barbecue didn't break me. It activated something infinitely more dangerous than wounded pride. The moment Amanda's dismissive laughter echoed through our neighborhood gathering, witnessed by Westchester's financial elite, I stopped being her husband and became her federal investigator. At 5:12 a.m. the next morning, while Amanda slept like a woman who believed her performance had been flawless, I transformed our home into an evidence laboratory that would have impressed the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We shared an iPad for recipes and household calendars, a small domestic detail she'd forgotten mattered in her operational security. It was unlocked, iCloud still syncing everything. I mirrored the entire device, message databases, photo caches, voice memos, encrypted files. I filmed the device in continuous chain of custody video, documenting time, date, serial number, then exported an encrypted forensic image to 2 separate drives and a secure cloud vault I maintained for sensitive case preparation. I wasn't guessing, I was building a federal case file with the same methodical precision I brought to international money laundering investigations. The first breakthrough came fast. A message thread with Dee Chen, the senior partner she'd learned so much from, buried between routine market discussions and congratulatory emoji. The lines that made my blood freeze were operationally precise. "He's on grand jury duty this week, late nights guaranteed. Thursday is completely clean for the transfer. We can push the management fee if the client signs the supplemental agreement. The side letter routes everything to Kestrel. Relax about Michael, he's too by the book to see gray area operations. Kestrel Capital Advisors, LLC. I pulled Secretary of State indexes through my federal database subscriptions. Delaware Incorporation, then Cayman Islands subsidiary. No employees, no physical office, just a registered agent and a pattern of incoming wire transfers from Sterling Wealth clients that matched strategic consulting line items in Amanda's portfolio presentations. Classic fee-skimming architecture laundered through offshore advisory relationships. My hands stopped shaking as professional recognition replaced personal devastation. I dismantled this exact criminal structure dozens of times, just never in my own kitchen. The photo evidence was devastating and comprehensive. Hotel mirrors reflecting 2 wine glasses and a wrist I recognized on a forearm I didn't. PDFs labeled Client Addendum, Side Letter Draft, showing unauthorized fee structures. Then the operational intelligence that proved systematic planning. A photographed copy of my federal travel calendar with grand jury weeks highlighted in yellow. She'd titled the file Windows of Opportunity. Amanda wasn't just conducting adultery, she was scheduling federal crimes around my court obligations. At 7:40 a.m., I did the only ethical thing a federal agent can do when criminal evidence bleeds into personal life. I recused myself completely and reported through proper channels. I met Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jordan Reese in a windowless conference room with 2 locked doors. I slid the encrypted drive across the table, spoke in factual bullet points, and remained silent while Internal Affairs and FBI Legal Division personnel took notes. I signed formal recusal documentation that removed me from any investigative role while preserving the evidence's integrity. The Bureau moved with federal efficiency that impressed even my experienced perspective. They established a parallel investigation squad, codename Quiet Ledger, with operational walls so high I couldn't access information even if I wanted to compromise the case. Lead case agent Lena Park specialized in complex financial crimes. Assistant U.S. Attorney Gabriela Ruiz had prosecuted similar offshore schemes. My official role, cooperating complainant, not investigator. This separation kept the case legally bulletproof and my conscience professionally clean. Within 48 hours, Quiet Ledger had constructed a preliminary organizational chart on their evidence board. Sterling Wealth client signs supplemental service agreement. Management fees flow to Sterling and simultaneously to Kestrel for strategic advisory services. Then transfer to Cayman feeder accounts that return investment performance participation directly to David and Amanda's personal accounts. Textbook fee split fraud decorated with insider trading intelligence, and my preserved screenshots matched transaction dates to the penny. Meanwhile, I maintained perfect operational security at home. I asked nothing, accused no one, and continued my regular federal caseload without deviation. At home, I remained courteous and professionally uninteresting. During evening meals, I cooked Amanda's favorite dishes while watching her check her phone in our oven door's reflection. She smiled at messages and called them client victories. Every lie became a timestamp I could cross-reference later if prosecutors needed additional context for sentencing guidelines. Quiet Ledger expanded their investigation aperture systematically. Subpoenas revealed burner phones, rideshare receipts coordinating clandestine meetings, and a boutique compliance consultant who blessed side letter arrangements for appropriate compensation. They discovered a pattern of performance preview committees where David obtained advanced earnings information from client CFOs during social events, then repositioned portfolios before public announcements. Amanda's communications proved she understood the criminal nature. Never put that in company email, side letter documentation only. The voice memo evidence provided prosecutorial gold. A 38-minute recording in Amanda's archived files captured clinking glasses, intimate laughter, and David's voice discussing operational details. We slide 40 basis points to Kestrel, pass through to Cayman, then redistribute after quarter close. Stop worrying about Michael. He chases international terrorists with Excel spreadsheets. He's professionally allergic to domestic gray areas. Amanda's response was the line that had destroyed our marriage. He's too boring to ever catch us anyway. Agent Park called with case updates I was cleared to receive. We have sufficient evidence for overt investigative steps, but timing remains crucial for maximum impact. I had my own timing considerations to manage. My parents' 40th anniversary dinner was scheduled for Saturday. 3 generations gathering for our family tradition of honest toasts and truthful conversations around linen tablecloths. I requested permission to use sanitized, non-sealed exhibits for personal confrontation. Bank statements with routing numbers redacted, Delaware incorporation documents for Kestrel, and message timestamps with contact identities masked to initials. Agent Park and AUSA Ruiz approved a carefully vetted evidence packet, sufficient to demonstrate systematic fraud without compromising grand jury materials or confidential investigative techniques. I reserved the private dining room at Valentina's, the Italian restaurant where our family celebrated promotions and baptisms. I invited Amanda's parents to honor Mom and Dad's 40 years together. I wanted the full family present when Amanda discovered that her boring, paranoid husband had just orchestrated the most comprehensive federal investigation of her criminal enterprise. She'd said I was too boring to catch sophisticated operations. FBI evidence would answer that challenge with mathematical precision that would make her collapse in ways she never imagined possible. Agent Park and USA Ruiz transformed our federal investigation into surgical precision, approving a carefully curated evidence packet that would destroy Amanda's criminal enterprise while maintaining prosecutorial integrity. The sanitized exhibits included redacted bank statements showing Kestrel capital transfers, Delaware incorporation documents proving shell company structures, and message timestamps demonstrating systematic planning. Most devastatingly, they cleared a 38-minute voice recording for personal use, Amanda and David discussing their criminal operations with the casual confidence of people who believed they were untouchable. The venue selection required strategic precision worthy of a federal operation. Valentina's private dining room had hosted 4 generations of family celebrations, its mahogany table and crystal chandeliers providing the perfect backdrop for what would become the most devastating family dinner in our history. I arrived 20 minutes early, arranging 9 cream envelopes stamped with redacted FBI seals beside white tulips in a low glass bowl. Each envelope contained identical evidence packets, ensuring every family member would witness Amanda's destruction simultaneously. My parents arrived glowing with 40 years of shared joy, followed by my sister Emma and her husband, then Amanda's parents, Charles and Leela, both radiating Westchester sophistication. Finally came Amanda herself, luminous in navy silk that projected the careful elegance of someone with nothing to hide. She kissed my cheek like a devoted wife, positioned herself between our mothers as I'd strategically planned, and launched into animated discussions about market trends and investment opportunities. After antipasti and wine service, I rose with measured authority, my voice carrying the same precision I brought to federal court testimony. Before we celebrate Mom and Dad's incredible milestone, I want to honor their most important lesson, that truth matters most when it's hardest to tell. I raised my glass toward my parents, then set it down beside the evidence envelopes. Tonight, we're keeping another family tradition, sharing important news with the people who deserve to hear it first. I distributed envelopes to each person, saving Amanda's for last. Her theatrical smile flickered as she processed the FBI markings. These are sanitized exhibits cleared by my office, I explained with clinical precision. They're not speculation or gossip, just documents, dates, and recordings. I'm officially recused from the case, so the evidence speaks for itself. Amanda's performance remained flawless as she opened to the first page. Delaware incorporation documents for Kestrel Capital Advisors, LLC, followed by Cayman Islands subsidiary filings and wire transfer ledgers showing management fees leaving Sterling Wealth client accounts on Tuesdays and reappearing at Kestrel on Fridays, labeled Strategic Advisory Services. The systematic theft pattern was mathematically precise and undeniable. Consulting partnerships are standard industry practice, Amanda said with practiced dismissal. Every firm leverages outside expertise for complex products. This is embarrassing, Michael. Her confidence remained intact, suggesting she believed the evidence was circumstantial rather than comprehensive. Page 2 shattered that confidence completely. Screenshots of her message thread with D. Chen displayed with forensic clarity. Thursday is clean for the transfer. He's on grand jury this week, late nights guaranteed. Route the side letter to Kestrel. My mother's wine glass trembled in her hand, while Charles cleared his throat like a man searching for explanations that didn't exist. Out-of-context business communications, Amanda attempted, but her voice carried less conviction. We help clients navigate regulatory complexities, you understand that. The deflection sounded hollow in the elegant dining room where truth had always been our family's currency. Page 3 delivered the devastating blow. A photographed copy of my federal travel calendar with grand jury weeks highlighted in yellow. File name clearly visible as windowsofopportunity.jpg. The operational intelligence demonstrated systematic planning that transformed adultery into federal conspiracy. My father stared at Amanda like he was trying to recognize a language he'd never heard before. Amanda, he said with quiet authority, why do you have Michael's classified schedule? Her miscalculation was swift and fatal. Because your son forgets anniversaries during grand jury season? The attempted humor landed like a physical blow, creating silence so complete you could hear the kitchen staff 2 rooms away. I reached beneath the credenza and activated the audio recorder, letting Amanda's voice fill our family sanctuary with devastating clarity. David Chen's casual tone discussing their criminal enterprise. We slide 40 basis points to Kestrel, pass through to Cayman, then redistribute after quarter close. Stop worrying about Michael. He chases terrorists with Excel spreadsheets. He's professionally allergic to gray areas. Then came Amanda's dismissive laugh, the same sound that had humiliated me at the Labor Day barbecue. He's too boring to ever catch us anyway. The recording stopped. Chairs scraped against hardwood as family members processed the magnitude of systematic betrayal they just witnessed. Leela gasped, covering her mouth, while Emma's husband muttered curses into his napkin. Amanda's face transformed from confident pearl to devastated ash as she realized the comprehensive scope of her exposure. "That's a private conversation," she whispered, voice thin as paper. "You violated my privacy." But her protests crumbled against the weight of federal evidence and family witness testimony. "I preserved evidence of federal crimes on jointly owned devices," I replied with prosecutorial precision. "Chain of custody documentation is in your folder if you want technical details." Amanda tried pivoting through emotional manipulation, indignation, tears, desperate appeals to our history, but each attempt collapsed against the mathematical certainty of bank records and voice recordings. When she finally processed that 16 years of marriage had been systematically destroyed by her own criminal enterprise, her body simply gave up. She didn't faint dramatically or collapse theatrically. Her nervous system simply shut down like a computer experiencing fatal errors. She slumped forward, elbows hitting linen, forehead meeting forearms, the air leaving her lungs like a punctured tire. The navy silk dress that had projected such confidence now seemed to mock her destruction. The woman who'd said I was too boring to ever catch sophisticated operations had just discovered that challenging FBI forensic specialists while conducting systematic federal crimes was the most expensive mistake anyone could make. Amanda had collapsed not from shame or fear, but from the mathematical certainty that her criminal enterprise had been exposed with prosecutorial precision that would destroy everything she'd stolen and everything she'd possessed. The silence following Amanda's collapse stretched like evidence under forensic examination, broken only by the soft clink of crystal and the distant murmur of Valentina's kitchen staff. She remained slumped forward over the mahogany table, her navy silk dress pooling around the chair like spilled evidence, breathing in shallow gasps while 9 cream envelopes scattered across linen like federal exhibits. The elegant anniversary celebration had transformed into a crime scene, witnessed by 3 generations who would never forget the systematic betrayal they'd just documented. My mother reached toward Amanda with maternal instinct, then pulled back as the reality of criminal conspiracy settled over our family gathering. "Michael," she whispered, "she needs medical attention." But my father's quiet authority filled the room with patriarchal judgment. "She needs legal counsel more than sympathy, Helen. What she's done isn't a medical emergency, it's a federal crime." Charles, Amanda's father and a retired corporate attorney, broke the devastating silence with professional detachment that revealed how completely his daughter had destroyed even parental loyalty. Michael, what are the federal implications here? These documents suggest systematic securities fraud with offshore components and potential RICO violations. His question carried legal precision that acknowledged Amanda's guilt while calculating damage control possibilities. I'm officially recused from the investigation, I replied with clinical authority, but similar cases typically involve wire fraud, money laundering, and securities violations, carrying 20 to 30 years in federal prison. The offshore components trigger enhanced penalties under international banking statutes. Amanda shook with each potential year I mentioned, her breathing becoming more labored as she processed the comprehensive scope of her legal destruction. Emma, my sister, approached Amanda with nursing instincts activated, despite her obvious disgust. Whatever she's done, she's having a panic response. She needs water and circulation. Emma's professional compassion provided momentary relief from the prosecutorial atmosphere, though her tone carried none of the warmth she'd previously shown her sister-in-law. As Amanda slowly raised her head, mascara streaking down cheeks that had been radiant 30 minutes earlier, she attempted damage control with desperate precision. Michael, please, this evidence is taken completely out of context. David manipulated me into these arrangements. I was naive about the legal implications, just following his guidance on industry practices. Her voice cracked with each word, but the deflection strategy was textbook white-collar defense. Claim manipulation, minimize knowledge, blame the co-conspirator. Leela, Amanda's mother, finally spoke with the broken voice of someone watching her daughter's life collapse in real time. Sweetheart, how could you risk everything for money you didn't need? We have comfortable lives, successful careers, family respect. Why throw it away for criminal schemes with that man? The maternal disappointment carried more devastation than any federal prosecutor could deliver. You scheduled federal crimes around my grand jury obligations, I responded with forensic precision that eliminated emotional sympathy. You photographed classified documents to coordinate systematic theft from clients who trusted you with their retirement security. This isn't marital problems, Amanda. This is comprehensive criminal enterprise disguised as wealth management. The recording device sat silent on the credenza, but Amanda's own voice echoed through everyone's memory. He's too boring to ever catch us anyway. The dismissive confidence she'd projected at our Labor Day barbecue now seemed like evidence of criminal arrogance that would influence federal sentencing guidelines. Amanda's desperation escalated as she realized her family support system was evaporating along with her legal defenses. She turned to each family member with increasing panic. Charles, you understand legal complexities. This could be prosecutorial overreach. Leela, you know I'm not a criminal, just a woman who made poor judgment calls under pressure. But her appeals met stone faces and silent condemnation. That's when the private dining room door opened to admit two individuals in dark suits who identified themselves as process servers, followed by Agent Patricia Martinez from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. The federal machinery was already in motion, triggered by my evidence preservation and Amanda's systematic criminal enterprise. Amanda Thompson, Agent Martinez announced with clinical authority, you're being served with a federal subpoena requiring your appearance before a grand jury investigating securities fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy charges. Additionally, these are divorce papers citing irreconcilable differences and criminal misconduct, along with temporary restraining orders on all joint assets pending federal investigation. The stack of legal documents landed beside Amanda's collapsed form, like a gavel striking. Her career, her financial independence, her very identity, all dissolved in a single devastating moment, witnessed by the family she'd systematically betrayed. I have nothing left, Amanda whispered, her voice barely audible. You've taken everything. My career, my money, my reputation. What about our children? The question was a desperate appeal, a last attempt at emotional leverage through parental manipulation. The children's future is protected, I replied with measured authority. Your access to them will be determined by family court based on their best interests, not your convenience. They'll understand that their father protected them from someone who calculated federal crimes while participating in family traditions built on honesty and integrity. Agent Martinez continued with procedural precision that eliminated any hope of negotiation. David Chen was arrested this morning at his residence and is currently cooperating with federal prosecutors. His testimony includes detailed information about your role in systematic client manipulation and offshore asset hiding. You should contact legal counsel immediately. Amanda's final desperate appeal came as she processed that her co-conspirator had already betrayed her to federal authorities. Michael, please, 16 years of marriage must count for something. I'll accept any consequences, cooperate completely, sign any agreements. Don't let this destroy our entire family legacy. But legacy protection was exactly why the evidence had been presented to family witnesses rather than discussed privately. Amanda, you used our family reputation to provide credibility for criminal operations. You exploited 16 years of trust to coordinate systematic theft from clients who believed they were working with ethical professionals. The family legacy was already destroyed. Tonight just made the destruction visible to everyone who mattered. My father stood with patriarchal authority that had guided our family through 4 decades of honest success. Amanda, you calculated my son's death timeline while sitting at our dinner table, wearing our family jewelry, participating in traditions built on trust and integrity. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, only prosecuted. As Amanda was helped from the dining room by Emma and the process servers, her navy silk dress wrinkled and stained with tears, she turned for one final appeal. The woman who loved you for 16 years is still here, Michael. Don't let federal prosecutors destroy that completely. But the woman who'd loved me wouldn't have scheduled federal crimes around my court obligations or dismissed my professional expertise while conducting systematic fraud. The boring, paranoid husband had become inevitable, and Amanda's dismissive confidence had cost her everything she'd stolen and everything she'd possessed. Federal agents would answer her challenge tomorrow morning with prosecutorial precision that would ensure consequences lasting decades beyond our destroyed marriage. The aftermath unfolded with the mechanical precision of a federal prosecution, each consequence cascading into the next, like perfectly documented evidence in a complex fraud investigation. Within 72 hours of Amanda's collapse at Valentina's, the full weight of federal justice activated with surgical efficiency. Monday morning brought arraignment proceedings at 8 a.m., where Amanda stood in a Navy suit that now looked like a defendant's uniform while the clerk read charges of wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and securities violations. Bail was set high, passports surrendered, assets frozen under federal forfeiture statutes. By 8:02 a.m., account freezes rippled across correspondent banks, locking the Cayman accounts that had been their private treasury. By noon, Sterling Wealth Advisors announced suspension of operations as institutional clients withdrew over $40 billion in managed assets. Amanda's world evaporated with breathtaking federal efficiency. The Southern District of New York filed comprehensive charges that would define the rest of her life: securities fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering, carrying potential sentences of decades in federal prison. Sterling Wealth terminated her immediately with cause, voiding severance packages and triggering clawback provisions for fraudulent commissions spanning 4 years. Professional licensing boards permanently revoked her credentials, while federal asset forfeiture orders seized every luxury item purchased with stolen client funds. The sophisticated wealth manager who'd said I was too boring to ever catch sophisticated operations was now wearing orange jumpsuits and facing court-appointed representation. David Chen's cooperation came swiftly, his attorney recognizing the mathematical certainty of federal conviction. He flipped faster than a day trader facing margin calls, admitting the fee split scheme, the side letters, the insider trading dinners, and the Cayman pass-throughs. His detailed testimony included timeline documentation of who signed what and when, delivered with professional precision that made clear he'd rehearsed his betrayal of Amanda. Despite cooperation, David received 24 years due to his leadership role, while Amanda's plea negotiations yielded 16 years plus extensive restitution orders that would follow her for life. The sentences reflected not just their crimes, but the systematic breach of fiduciary duty that had exploited retirees' pensions and university endowments. The children required careful navigation through this devastating revelation. Jake and Ryan, now 14, needed to understand that their mother's federal crimes didn't reflect on them or diminish their place in our family. Dr. Sarah Martinez, who specialized in family crisis intervention, helped them process the complex emotions of loving someone who'd committed serious crimes. "Your mother made terrible choices," I explained during one of our sessions, "but you are Thompson children, raised with our values, and nothing can change that." Their resilience proved stronger than any criminal scheme. Within months, they were thriving again, protected by family structures and honest answers that metabolized shame like medicine rather than poison. My FBI career, initially threatened by the conflict of interest, received unexpected elevation. The director commended my role as a cooperating complainant who preserved evidence integrity under extreme personal duress. My expertise in detecting systematic securities manipulation through digital forensics made me the Bureau's leading expert on investment fraud with offshore components. The specialized securities fraud detection protocol I developed became Bureau-wide training, while financial firms across New England sought comprehensive compliance audits to prevent internal threats that could trigger federal investigations. Agent Patricia Martinez and I had developed a professional partnership during the investigation that revealed intellectual compatibility extending beyond federal casework. She was brilliant, ethical, and possessed unwavering dedication to justice that resonated deeply with my values. Our collaboration had built mutual respect through shared commitment to protecting investors from sophisticated criminal networks. 10 months after Amanda's sentencing, Patricia and I were married in a quiet ceremony at my parents' home, building something genuine from the ashes of destroyed criminal enterprises and turning personal betrayal into meaningful partnership focused on financial crime prevention. The moment of perfect closure came on a spring afternoon when Patricia and I were having lunch at the Greenwich Country Club, celebrating successful completion of a major federal case that had recovered $60 million for defrauded pension funds. I sat comfortably in my tailored navy suit, natural daylight streaming through expansive windows, reviewing case files while enjoying the satisfaction that comes from protecting financial markets through systematic prosecution of sophisticated fraud schemes. Across the dining room, I spotted Amanda's mother, Leela, sitting alone, wearing clothing that reflected the financial devastation federal asset forfeiture had brought to their entire family. When she noticed me, her eyes filled with desperate recognition, and she started to approach seeking forgiveness for her daughter's federal crimes. I simply met her gaze with professional indifference, then returned to my case files, dismissing her as completely as Amanda had once dismissed my federal expertise while conducting systematic criminal operations. Some conversations aren't worth having when federal convictions have already provided definitive answers about accountability and consequences. Later that evening, Amanda sent a letter from federal detention. "Michael, I made terrible mistakes. I understand now that you were protecting financial markets while I was stealing from them. Can we discuss forgiveness?" I filed the letter with other case documentation without responding. Federal securities fraud spanning years isn't a mistake, and systematic client manipulation isn't a marital problem that conversation can resolve. Justice had been served with mathematical precision, and that was sufficient. As Patricia and I walked home through Greenwich's quiet streets, I reflected on how completely my life had transformed since that Labor Day barbecue where Amanda first said I was too boring to ever catch sophisticated operations. I'd lost a wife, but gained unshakable professional credibility with federal prosecutors. I'd lost a marriage built on deception, but found partnership built on shared values and honest purpose. The children had learned that truth matters most when it's hardest to tell, and that some doors close to keep people safe on both sides. Amanda had laughed and dismissed my federal expertise while conducting systematic securities fraud, calculating my professional schedule for criminal timing, and exploiting 16 years of trust to coordinate thrust from clients who believed they were working with ethical professionals. FBI agents with arrest warrants had answered her challenge with prosecutorial precision, protecting not just my family, but establishing precedents protecting other investors from similar exploitation. Her casual dismissal about being too boring to catch her had cost her 16 years in federal prison, and that was the most expensive education on underestimating FBI forensic specialists that anyone could receive. My response had made her collapse at family dinner, and federal justice had followed with inevitable, satisfying precision that would echo through financial markets for years to come.